So, the Joker. Now, this first movie of the Joker overall got like basically an amazing reception, right? Most people, I think, will agree on that. There's obviously there's always someone that doesn't like something, but overall, most people seem to think it was amazing. Now, the thing about it is that there's obviously the sequel that's come out. And as it currently stands, with there being these two movies, it frames what is now a franchise of these two Joker films. It's only two films, so that technically it's a franchise or a series or whatever you want to call it. It's not like it's just a singular film anymore. It frames them it frames the property of this Joaquin Phoenix Joker in a certain light. It's like, for example, with say something like the video game series The Last of Us, where the first game just had this amazing reception, and then the second one, had things about it that people liked. Like me, for example, I thought the gameplay in it was really good. Not that the gameplay in the first one wasn't, but it even improved on it. And I was like, yeah, I really love playing, like running around in the game and just sneaking around people, fighting, attacking, doing all sorts of stuff in it. And then it was the story that really sort of upset people in a lot of ways, because it felt like it just sort of collapsed a lot of what the first one was. But in that one, I think you could still maybe, moving forwards, once the third one happens, depending what they do, you could redeem it or make make people realize the second one isn't necessarily part of a larger story of, like, say, 3 games, because they're apparently going to do a third game, and I think that's going to be the end of it. How do I put it? Or at least the end of that story, that what will be the Ellie story, and so in light of where it sits at the moment, though, as a franchise, it's tarnished a bit by the second one. The second one still made a lot of money, but it's got that against it now. Now, the thing is that the Joker is sitting like that in a more extreme way, because The Last of Us 2 still made a lot of money as far as the video game is concerned, but it was obviously critically, like, went a different way. And so it was like, oh, I like this and that about it, but it's not just getting that universal acclaim that, like, the first one got. It's, got a few more sort of thorns from the rose bushes, so to speak, or, whatever metaphor you want to use. And the thing is that the Joker 2 has taken quite a knock for what that now two-piece franchise, currently two-piece franchise is. But I think with the Joker 2, that there's quite a particular... Now, I haven't actually seen it, preface that, so I've read up about it. I know what happens in it, but only from a perspective of talking to, a couple of people, having read about it, read the plot. And so I know what happens in it, all the big beats and all that sort of stuff. And it looks like it's filmed really well, the cinematography and all that. Like, hey, I'm not dissing that, but it's the story that's obviously the issue to people, the concern. And the thing is that I feel like, from what I've heard about the Joker 2, what I've read about it, that there's a strong case to be made. And this is sort of one part of what I want to talk about here on this space. Pardon me, coughing into the mic. Apologies. Is I want to discuss sort of 2 things, which is, one part is what I would have done. This is just, nerd fantasy football talking. What I would have done as a second Joker film. And also the bit that I'm getting at, which is, given that we exist in a world in which this second Joker film has come out, and it is what it is, regardless of how you feel about it, it's now the second film, and so we exist in a world in which we have to deal with that. And how would you move forwards from that if, say, for example, a third Joker film came to exist? Because I think there's a very strong possibility of a great third act, cap it off as a trilogy, and have the second movie be a certain piece of that puzzle. And I think it would not make people do a 180-degree turn on the movie. It sort of is what it is. People might still have some problems with it in terms of the musical parts of it dragging the story down and yada yada yada. But I think it would make people realize, oh, there's this 3-part story that takes place across this trilogy, and the second one that managed to make it sort of something more than what it just was by making it sort of function in a certain way. And so I'm going to start with what I would have done as a Joker 2. I'm going to start on that side of things. So what I would have done, like I say, nerd fantasy football speaking, is I would have done that. He's in Arkham Asylum, which is where he is in the for the bulk of majority of the second film, where he ends up at the end of the first one. So it's logical that he's there, keeping with the realism of it all, that he's still stuck in that place. That what happens is Harley Quinn, the character, I feel like she was, the way that they used her, I feel like she was used quite wrongly, whatever that's not good English at all, I know, in the incorrect way in that second Joker film. Because what they tried to use her as is someone who's just nothing but a fan, an outright from the beginning fan of the Joker personality. The Joker as a figure, is what he is and what he represents, and him as a being. And Arthur's basically going the other way. He's just coming back down and going back towards trying to be just ordinary Arthur Fleck. What they should have done, I feel, is that, and she's also not like his psychiatrist or his therapist or whatever in the film. And I feel what they should have done is had her be his therapist, as she is in the lore of it all. And what they should have done is had her trying to be understanding of him, like for her own clinical benefit, sort of like roughly not 100%, but somewhat akin to, if you think of Sarah Connor in Terminator 2, when she's in the mental facility, Pescadero mental facility, if I remember correctly, at the beginning portion of Terminator 2, and she's being sort of monitored over by like the Dr. Soberman, or whatever his name is, who was the therapist guy that comes into the police station to sort of check out what's going on with them when they get her and Kyle Reese get arrested during the first film. And he just shows up for that. And he happens to walk out of the police station just as Arnie's walking in, and, has the infamous line of like, Sarah Connor's a patient. She's here. I'm a friend of hers. Can I see her, please? And what happens is these, like, he does the infamous, oh, I'll be back. And that's that doctor, though. He comes back in the second one as now using her to sort of write books to get famous or whatever, and basically using her as a sort of a prop piece to make his, career take off, to enlarge his career, sort of thing. And I feel what they should have done is had Harley Quinn, Dr. Harley Quinzel, sorry, because Harley Quinn's not even really her actual name, is it? Like, that's the persona she takes over. So shouldn't really start calling her that. She's Harleen Quinzel. But I suppose Harley is like maybe a nickname that she maybe has, but like Harleen Quinzel, I think, is her technical name. Anyway, you know who I'm talking about. That's the important point. Have her be his, Arthur Fleck, Joker's therapist, and she's like the Dr. Melfi in The Sopranos, where she's being very clinical, but she's also using him to try to sort of get ahead with her career. And in keeping with the dynamic of the first movie, have it be that, like, is he imagining it, or is she being real with him, that he thinks that she likes him romantically, and it's just her using, like, liking him as a clinical subject, as a test subject or whatever, as a thing to sort of basically increase her fame as a therapist, as a psychoanalyst, or whatever you want to call it, whatever she is. She's one of those sort of things. You know what I mean? And effectively, in the course of that, he starts to think that she's romantically interested in him because she tolerates him in a way where she not endorses and sort of totally outright, no, she's not actually wanting to promote what he's doing or anything, or telling him to become even worse, but she sort of agrees with him to a certain degree to sort of like get into his headspace and hang out with him and sort of try understand him from the inside out and see all the little avenues and pockets and places in his head. And you can have those sort of musical sequences to some degree. You obviously don't want to be stopping the story in which the way they seem to in the second film, but you have her sort of entering his world and you think, oh, I found someone who really likes me for me, you know, and she really just likes him as a patient, you know, like what he represents as a patient and what she can get out of him in that regard, in that context. And so as the story unfolds, he's having this moment of doubt of thinking, you know, because in the movie of Joker, the actual movie of Joker 2, Harley Quinn or whatever, she's immediately already on board with him and she wants him to be Joker more than he wants to be. And that's not really true to the Joker dynamic. Harley Quinn wants Joker, wants him, but there was never anything about her having to sort of, you know, make him wanting him more to be him than him or anything. Like there's never any dynamic about a doubt of self in that regard with Joker, and especially in regards to her with Joker. And so the way they did it was, I would say, is wrong in the sense that they just outright want her to be like him for just the image that he's presenting as Joker, and he's ultimately hesitant about that and prefers to wants to be Arthur Fleck. And what they should have done is, as I'm saying, is that he should have basically had this moment of doubt through her where she's trying to sort of embrace a certain amount of his craziness and say, you are unique and you are this and that, but trying to recant him back at the same time and say, but you are also Arthur, you know, that is who you actually are. And so sort of trying to sort of, you know, go a little bit with him and then sort of pull him back in, you know, try to be understanding and sort of embrace him to a certain degree, but not totally, although I accept and I condone everything you're doing, but I can see why you did this and why you did that, because no one does that in the first movie. And then suddenly he discovers this woman, this therapist who comes along, who seems to understand him and seems to understand all these things that he's done to some degree, but he totally falls for it in the sense of like, oh, yes, she wants me, like, you know, almost like a little puppy dog to some degree, but, you know, maybe not totally like just got his tongue hanging out like, you know, The Mask, Jim Carrey's The Mask when he sees Cameron Diaz at that nightclub. But, you know, across the film, he sort of falls for it. You know, maybe he's a little bit guarded to start with because he thinks, what's this about? You know, what angle is she playing? And then he starts to think, well, maybe she likes me. And as the story unfolds, he thinks like, oh, this is my love interest or something. And then what happens is that by virtue of events or something, his followers would like break him out of Arkham or something. They bomb it or something, or he's at a court case or whatever, you know, the same kind of thing. They cause an explosion, something like that, that allows him to get out and onto the streets and away from, you know, being a prisoner of authority or whatever, like he is. And he takes her and she's like there at the stand and she's commenting, she's a witness or whatever thing, talking about what she's encountered. So you could still have that kind of court case stuff going on at some point in the film, and that's where this would occur. And she's there to be like, you know, like Johnny Depp's therapist, psychiatrist or whatever, and say, well, Amber Heard was like this and Johnny Depp was like this and yada yada. And she talks about a certain amount and he realizes, oh, you actually didn't like me, like for me, like you're not interested in me romantically. You're just a using bitch. You know, that's all you're actually after is just you like for fame. And then boom, explosion happens. He makes off with her. He kidnaps her and runs off somewhere into Gotham, God knows where, somewhere in some abandoned building, warehouse, something like that. And the turn of events that we all kind of know to happen in their story essentially happen, where he traumatizes her and permanently damages her by like electroshock therapy on her or something like that, and essentially drives her, just, infects her with his craziness and makes her the Harley Quinn that we all sort of know. And makes her crazy, and then she becomes what he thought he was, she sort of becomes what he thought she was to begin with. And a moment of doubt would occur across the film where he thinks, yeah, maybe she's right. Maybe, before he realizes at the court case that, that I'm talking in my version of it where, she likes me and maybe I should just be Arthur and yada yada. And she should be trying to bring him back towards that as her job as a therapist, but she's doing it in a certain way but it invariably leads him on. And what happens is, and you could sort of have this tragic fall of Harley Quinn as well, like where people are saying, you got to be careful, Harleen, and yada yada. And she goes, I know what I'm doing, and this, that, and the other. And ultimately, she gets herself into deeper water than she can swim in. She gets kidnapped by him, taken away off and into, the some unknown part of Gotham or whatever, and traumatizes her and electroshock therapies her or whatever, and like tilts her over the edge into becoming sort of the Mad Hatter sidekick love interest that we all know. And effectively, it would be him as well, like kind of embrace it. By the end of it, he's become, realized, no, I am the Joker. That like this is me, this is who I am, and you're not gonna take that away from me or whatever. And especially with this thing of this moment, this one person he thought understood him finally doesn't. And it's like, and that tilts him fully, like, beyond the point of there is no Arthur Fleck at all. I thought I could go back to maybe being that life potentially at all, but I can't. I am the Joker. And he's not hesitant or anything anymore by the end of it. He just outright is the Joker. And he's accepting of that and everything. And then moving in, and I don't know what the third movie, if there was a third movie after that would be, but it would be at the end of that second film, there is no doubt in his mind whatsoever. And there won't be any doubt in his mind ever again. He just is out and out the Joker from this point forwards. And he now has the Bride of Frankenstein, Harley Quinn, by his side. That would effectively be my my take on it, of a second one, is that, yeah. And it would be that still about him and Harley Quinn, him and sort of similar beats in that regard, but just handling it in the right way. It's how it's done and what the arc is across it and where it ultimately ends. And you could do a third one maybe after that, but I wouldn't be like, Arthur, at that point, he's just outright become the Joker. You sort of think, okay, at the end of the first one, isn't he that? It's like, yeah, he is. But then he has this moment of doubt of like, hey, I'm accepting of my audience, but in this sort of distant way. And then, as he is in the first one. But at the end of the second one, you realize, so he hasn't fully accepted that as an audience of like, he hasn't embraced being the Joker. He's a bit hesitant about that. Am I the Joker? Or maybe I want to go back and this chick seems to understand me. Maybe I can go back. And then, no, I can't. I am the Joker, like in Breaking Bad, I am Heisenberg. I can't go back to being a regular Walter White. I am Heisenberg, and there are no more half measures, I am the Joker kind of thing. And so, and I'm not even sure if you would need to do a third movie after that, because it would just be, okay, well, he is what he is now, and moving forwards, it would now just be him staying as that, because he's now lock, stock, full Joker. And it would just be him now showing up in a story. And that could be interesting in its own right. Like, don't do it as Joker 3. Have it be like young Batman or something, Batman starting out or some other thing like that. And he shows up in a supporting role in some way. They use him in some regard just as the Joker. Where it's like, yeah, he is the Joker and he shows up at some regard naturally in some story point or story points. But that's the idea for what I would do if I was making Joker 2. Like I say, fantasy football to the nines, that one in particular. But this is the other side of what I was going to talk about on this space, which is we do live ultimately in a world in which the second Joker film has been created. it exists, whether you like it or not, unfortunately. And I'm not necessarily, I think I prefer it. I'd prefer this version to not exist. But I think if handled the right way, and this is the big if, capital letters IF, is you could redeem it in a way with a third film. That's if you could get a third film made now, because it would require definitely Joaquin Phoenix to come back. And I don't know if you would get Lady Gaga back or not, because I think it would be interesting to have Harley Quinn show back up in it and then have him come for her. You might be able to recast her. I think you could get away with recasting her and have it be someone else. They're able to do that fairly effectively in The Dark Knight, with having Maggie Gyllenhaal take over the role that Katie Holmes played in of Rachel in the first one in Batman Begins. But it's definitely got to be the Joaquin Phoenix playing this Joker, especially to cap it out. Like, it'd be weird if it's the same character, but he only played the first two times. But like the third one isn't him, it'd just feel out of whack. So provided you can get him back in that, and say perfect world, you get her back to play Harley Quinn as they want it in this third film, as I'm trying to make it be, it would be that. So plot twist and spoilers, obviously, granted from this moment forwards. If you haven't seen the second movie and you're hoping to see it and you don't want it to be spoiled, this is where it's effectively going to get spoiled for you from this point on, especially. Because I didn't really spoil it, I would say, before this. But at this point, there's going to be spoilers. Just to warn you, if you're one of those people. Otherwise, who cares, So what's going to happen is that as at the end of the second film, the actual Joker 2, so he gets taken back to Arkham, because across the second film, Harley Quinn wants him to be Joker and loves that, image of him as that, and him being that sort of that character, that figure, that personality. And Arthur's all reluctant and hesitant, and he ultimately cucks out and beta males out, and has this moment of doubt and becomes apologetic, and she turns away from him, was like, get away from me, whatever, doesn't want any part of him. Then he gets taken back to Arkham Asylum, and while he's in there, another random patient in there does the want to hear a joke, da-da-da-da, you get what you fucking deserve, and stabs him a bunch of times in the stomach. And I believe at the end of the movie, I think they sort of show him basically looking dead. Now, this might get a little bit too far-fetched, but I think you could easily probably play it, though, that, hey, he survives that. He gets surgery, survives that. But that person gets out of Arkham and they take over the Joker role. They carved their face as well at the end of the second film, a la the Heath Ledger Glasgow Kiss Joker with the carved face. And what happens is across this third film, it's sort of how Joker got his groove back, where Arthur's now still in Arkham or whatever. They're not going to give him the death penalty or something, or he's just going to be stuck in there because, granted the attack that happened on him and that, they're just going to whatever. I don't know, something like that. He's sort of stuck there, and people look down on him again as the Arthur and like, you're not the Joker, you're just Arthur, whatever, and he feels like shit again. And it's like one of those don't know what you got till it's gone kind of moments that he now has, where he's on the end of that, and it's like, oh, I know what I've got because it's gone. I had it and now it's gone. And ultimately, he realizes that there's nothing else that I do have except the Joker. And I doubted that, and I paid a cost for that. And that's the second film. And that's where I feel the redeeming of the second film to some degree could happen, because you're now utilizing what the second film is to sort of weave this narrative of bunkering back down on sort of what the first one was into this third one, with him basically, he gets out of Arkham, he goes after, because people just keep breaking out of Arkham all the time. It's a very, shit security facility. And he goes after this Joker that's out on the streets, making a name, doing all this stuff as the Joker, which is his identity. And he gets jealous and he realizes, this is me, I am the Joker, like Arthur does. But like, I've got nothing else except that. And this person's taken it away from me. I didn't realize it could be taken away. I thought I was sort of the arbiter of how mad someone could be in the world, perhaps. And like, you know, I'm the maddest one around, and like, oh no, other people, I recanted on my madness a bit, and someone, you know, hit the accelerator pedal on crazy more than me, and sort of, you know, got ahead of me in the lead there for a while. But I am the true Joker would be sort of the emphasis of the third one, where like he comes after Harley Quinn, he gets her, he sort of makes her the you know, like sort of same thing as I was saying before. He kind of makes her pay for like sort of having doubted him or whatever, and like, oh yeah, you like this, do you? Well, bam, or whatever. Or maybe she doesn't like it anymore, and she's like, you know what, I was wrong then, and maybe she's got a family, and he makes her something or other, like maybe, you know, kids or something, and like he makes her like into Harley Quinn, you know, that we know, and like, yeah, you like Joker, I'm gonna fucking make you like it, you know. And he comes after this like, you know, imposter Joker and deals to them and gets rid of them. And at the end of the third film, maybe he carves a, you know, smile into his face as well or something. Maybe, maybe not. But if he did, like just the idea of like the permanency of that, I like, where like now it doesn't matter if you've got the makeup on or not. And there could be even some detective or something, you know, who's a hostage negotiator detective person or something who sort of, you know, shows up at certain points, especially once he gets out of Arkham, and maybe it's like Jim Gordon, you know, a certain stage of his career, Jim Gordon, the you know the good cop, and he's like, you know, at some point near the end, he's like, you know, calling Arthur, you could just come down, whatever, and he's like, Arthur, who the fuck's that? I'm the Joker, you know, like I'm the Juggernaut, bitch, and yeah, I feel like you could redeem that second one by utilizing it to then craft this third one. And it would still have, the second one would have its foibles, as I said, of all these musical scenes that just hold up the film or something. But it would ultimately, you would realize, oh, well, as long as the second one leads into that third one, I'm willing to watch it as well, because it would make you realize that there's this third one that sort of where it all leads to, you know, that it all ultimately leads to this. Oh yeah, they still ultimately told this great story across these three films in total. And yeah, I just feel like, you know, it's an interesting thing where like, you know, when it's a single film, people can love it or hate it, and then they do a sequel and suddenly, oh, the sequel's a lot better than the first one, and now I think more of the franchise as a whole, or I love the first one, but then the second one sucked, and now because there's only two of them, the overall rating on that the franchise or this iteration of it, you know, is lessened. You know, the average percentage on or whatever has gone down. But I feel like with the way that the second film, the actual Joker 2 film, is, that you could piggyback off of that into a third film and treat Joker 2 as a great sort of moment of doubt, second act low point, Empire Strikes Back place in this 3-act trilogy structure. And so this third one would then get to the end point of, yeah, there's no like, he's now accepted totally his audience of like, yep, I am the only audience that I ever really have had is the Joker audience. He's accepted that, and he's actually happy with that and loves that and is connected to that. And by the end of that film, he then kills that imposter Joker and takes over the sort of burgeoning sort of, because he had, you know, the followers and shit, and like, yeah, we're Joker, whoa, and it's like it's the original Joker, but it's like they just want Joker, whoever it is, but like he's taken back the Joker title, and he's now the actual clown prince of chaos and crime of Gotham. And at the end of that film, it would be he's 100% Joker, like in every way, and that would be the end point of the Arthur story. Like the Arthur Fleck Joker, you know, persona, like character. That would be the, you know, the full metal jacket of it all. Yeah, so that's just a little sort of brain fart that I had there that I wanted to get out into the world, and you know, tell me what anyone, when you listen to this, tell me what you think and feel about that. Obviously, you know, it's sort of like, as I say, it is what it is, where we live in a world in which this film has happened, the sequel, but, you know, where you can move forwards from it. You know, once again, a little bit of fantasy football, but a bit more accepting in the sense of, well, this one has happened, but where could you move forwards from it in a best case scenario? And also, as I said at the start, of like, well, what would you have done, or what would I have done as a second one? Obviously, we can't really do that because the second one has happened. But tell me what you think, guys, and yeah, it'll be interesting to hear. So until next time, I'll love yous and leave yous. Good night, goodbye, and you get what you fucking deserve.